Jessica, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. So, as I was explaining in the introduction, we're going to start with the first part. But before, I have a question for you. Do you see in session more people who are already in open relationship or people who are in monogamous relationship?
Yeah, in my practice, it's mostly people who are either already doing non monogamy or they're in the earlier stages and they're exploring the opening up of their relationship.
Okay, so you don't have the couples who are in a monogamous relationship and are thinking about it. They're already at the beginning of it, they transition already, or people who are already for years, decades in this kind of conscious
Yeah.
non-monogamous.
And of course, I have had people that come in monogamous and on their own, are wondering about it and looking to explore it as well before they've done anything. Yes.
Okay. So I still have, questions for people who are in monogamous relationship and are thinking about opening up their relationship because I have a lot of people like this in my
Yeah.
session. So from your book, your latest book, Polywise, there's something you say that is very interesting. You were saying that what worked to keep a relationship functional in monogamy is often insufficient to keep relationship healthy and functional in non-monogamy. So, what kind of skills people need to transition to conscious non-monogamy?
Non-monogamy, yeah. So usually people they need higher level of communication skills. They need, and specifically around how to have difficult conversations that there might be charged emotions that are arising. So how do we approach this conversation from a neutral place, from a loving place, and really how to self-regulate becomes a very important skill, right? Of how to regulate my own nervous system and then how to support and co regulate with my partner as well if they're getting activated. So it's higher level of communication skill, higher level of self regulation. And often many people are surprised. It seems so simple, but the practicality of time management.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
How to do
yeah.
your schedule. How do we do time together already? And then how do we do time with new people? And just the managing of the calendar becomes a new sort of administrative skill that people usually need as well.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
because there's something also interesting that you were saying, or that people say that love is infinite, but time and resources are not.
Right.
So,
Time and resources are finite, and we have to figure out, right, in the human limited body, even though my heart
yes.
is infinite in the universe,
Mm,
how do I manage my time with people, right?
mm.
It's,
So, so people need to think that first, do I have
yeah.
time for this, so like multiple relationship? Do I have the skills, meaning like, do I can I communicate? Can I be a good listener? Can I be a good speaker? Can I regulate myself? And can I co-regulate with someone? So those are very important skills and
Yes.
difficult sometimes as well.
Absolutely difficult. And they're not specific to non-monogamy. Like these are skills that will enhance
Yes.
our lives with any relationship, whether it's friends, family, lover, our children, coworkers. But it really becomes a necessity in non-monogamy because it's a, more complex relational structure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have three questions regarding this topic of monogamous couples. So for the people who listen, you or need to have those three big skills before. But so the first questions from the audience was how to establish agreements.
Yeah.
Like it's a couple who's been together for 2 decades,
Two
and
decades.
they are wondering how they can establish agreements in their relationship.
Yes, it's a great question. So sometimes if you've been together for 2 decades, it's nice to actually go through and assess what are the agreements we already have.
Hmm.
And a lot of those are implicit or assumed.
Yes.
So to make the current agreements more explicit and then see which ones need to be adjusted and changed or like where we need new agreements altogether.
Hmm.
Yeah, but usually, and I have like the 100 questions in my head that I always go through with clients of how to
I
create
imagine.
their agreements.
Hmm.
Right, but I start with come up first with sort of your values mission statement of the relationship. Why are we together?
Good question.
Right. Why do we still choose each other? What's the purpose of this connection or union that we have? So there's something really beautiful and overarching that can help the transition when we know like what we're about, and then why are we doing this thing? Why are we
Mm.
doing non-monogamy? And then it's easier to get into the nitty-gritty of those agreements of, safe sex agreements are usually some of the most important ones. What are our protocols? What are our boundaries personally, and then how we communicate about that. Agreements around maybe how much time we need together, and then how much time you have for yourself to do whatever you want. Agreements when we communicate about when we finally are interested, communicating about when there is someone I want to go on a date with. Do I tell you before? Do I tell you
Mm.
after? How much do I tell you? Those kind of things are what people need to sort through.
Mm.
Yeah.
And there is no good answers. Is really related to it within the relationship, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think there are some best practices, of course,
Tell us.
right? One best practice would be not to put rules onto each other or other
Mm.
people that we don't know yet, versus what are my boundaries,
Okay.
right? So I can't tell my partner and I might have an agreement that we have unbarriered sex and we're not going to have unbarriered sex with anyone else until communicating with each other and until everyone goes through a certain kind of safety test protocol, right?
Mm.
But I can't, if they veer from that, then my boundary is great. We're going to be protected until we test. Right? That's the consequence, right? Instead
Okay.
of trying to control other people.
Mm. Yeah, we're gonna come back to the controlling thing
Oh, good.
because there
Yeah.
were interesting things that I was like, oh, I didn't know this could have been controlling, but
Right.
okay.
Right. And it's hard to know the difference between what's a boundary, what's a rule, what's a,
Yes.
consideration versus controlling. They can look very similar, but they will feel different.
Totally. So
Yeah.
for this couple, like to reflect on the kind of agreement they already have, the explicit, the non-explicit ones, the values, why they want to do that, why do they choose each other, and maybe also to reflect on because when you open the relationships, there are so many different concepts in it,
Yeah.
right? You can be polyamory, it can be just a swinging, it can be many other stuff. So do they need to agree on the same thing or
Great
can it be different?
question. They don't have to agree on the same style. Each
Mm.
person can be living a different style. So one person might say, I really want polyamory. I would like one or two other, falling
Mm.
in love with type of partners or attachment based partners. And someone might say, I've got you, I've got my work, I've got our kids. I only have time for maybe more casual dates once or twice a month.
Mm.
And they can do it differently. The key is to respect that difference, right? And
Mm.
to understand why each person is choosing that specific style.
Mm.
We might even have different styles between our different partners within ourselves. We might go, oh, this is more of a
Yes.
swinging partner, where this is more of a polyamorous partner that I have. So just allowing the variety.
Hmm.
Yeah. What else was I going to say about that? They can do different styles. And yeah,
They can do different styles.
yeah,
And and something you said also, I think in your book Polysecure or maybe Polywise, which is it was about attachment. That sometimes we put too much attention on the how do you say the style of the opening up the relationship, what kind of a are we polyamory, are we just a casual sex, this kind of stuff
yeah,
is more about like the attachment with the other one. I
yeah,
don't know how to say it in better in better way, but usually we feel like we can feel secure because we choose this kind of style,
yes.
but actually it's not about the style, it's more about the relationship with the other partner.
Yeah, so this is where people usually get in trouble is they'll make a rule that we're not going to fall in love with anyone else.
Mm.
I've only seen that backfire.
I'm pretty sure because when we are
Right.
scared about something, it happens.
Exactly. We can't put a rule on our
Mm.
feelings. We can
Mm.
put, limits on commitments I make to other people. I'm not going to take on a new primary partner. I'm not going to have children with
Mhm.
someone else. I'm not going to, try to live with someone else for now. But we can't control falling in love. So a lot of
Mm.
people like they feel safer to say, "Oh, it's just sex on the side or it's more casual," and we won't have big feelings, and then inevitably big feelings happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So instead of saying we can't have feelings, just, requesting, can we go slow in how we integrate into having big feelings, right? That we don't maybe make big structural changes in a month, right? Can we titrate this together and even allow that other person to come into our lives, or our lives change because of that other person? Yeah. So instead
Nice.
of saying no, it's just about, can we pace it at a digestible pace?
Pace.
Yeah.
Wow. Can we go slower? And the next question, I think it's maybe a bit related to that, but and I think you hear a lot about these concerns. How to deal with jealousy?
Yes, it's a common question. And I have a program on my website, a talk
Mhm.
that goes through, seeing jealousy as a messenger
Okay.
of something deeper to look into. And we can look into me, we, or society, is my rhyme.
Hmm.
Right? So sometimes jealousy is really our partner's done everything right. They're not breaking any agreements. They've reassured us, they're
Hmm.
genuine. And we still feel jealous. So looking at what within me is getting activated. Is it a
Mm.
history of betrayal or dishonesty, or even a legacy in my family of those kind of experiences? Right? Or usually it can be insecurity, where we're comparing ourselves. There's shame,
Mm.
right? The belief of inadequacy. And so our partner is with someone who maybe looks a different way or has a different kind of education than we do, and we compare ourselves as less than, right?
Mm.
Even if our partner isn't doing that.
Yeah.
So that's, looking at what's coming up within you. Then it might not be your stuff. It could really be the relationship where your partner is not showing up in the way you've agreed or you're used to, right? You're
Mm.
getting less time and attention. That's hard to deal with. Or they're breaking rules. Sometimes a new person comes in and we get demoted. It's not okay. We didn't agree to that, right?
Yep.
Or our partner starts just, I call it the justice jealousy, where there's something we've been asking for from our partner for
Mm.
years.
Mm.
And we finally just accept, I'm probably not going to get this because it's just not who they are.
Mhm.
And then they wind up giving it to someone else. And it's
Yeah.
so painful.
Yeah. When I was reading this, I was like, "Oh my god! If it would be happening to me, I would be like, yes, like it's
Yeah,
unfair.
right. It's
It's
so
unfair."
unfair, right? But that's not a personal thing as much as that is something going on in the relationship that needs to get addressed.
Wow,
Yeah.
interesting.
Within that too, there can be attachment insecurity either within the me or the we, right?
Okay.
And
Yeah.
people can have primal panic and they actually think it's jealousy, but they're really just having attachment insecurity come up and
Mm.
need to do their own attachment healing as well as create more security with their partner.
Mm.
And then finally, the we part, the society part, is looking at the cultural and societal narratives about jealousy, about ownership and love in relationship, usually gender, about being a man or being a woman. The binary comes up a lot, even if people don't necessarily subscribe to the gender binary or traditional gender roles. We've all been inoculated with it. So, yeah,
Mm.
it's an
Wow.
important aspect to look at.
And now it makes sense that jealousy is a messenger because there are so many messages that we can
Exactly.
go deep down and trying to think and reflect. Is it about me? What should I look? Is it about us? Is it about society? So super interesting because it can be very enriching to really look deep down at it.
Yeah, yeah. And so the
Mhm.
key is not to be afraid of jealousy. It just expect that it will be there and that it's an invitation to go deeper within your own healing work, or to get closer in relationship.
Mm.
So especially as a partner, if your partner is jealous, not to judge and blame them or shame them for they shouldn't have their jealousy. They have it. So being loving and exploring what's coming up for you, right? What do you need, my love, right? How can we
Mm.
work through this together?
Nice. And when you were talking about insecurity, healing journey, I was thinking at people who having trauma or had trauma.
Yeah,
If we have trauma, can we be in open relationship, or do we
absolutely.
need to heal before?
We can absolutely be in open relationships. but we might have different ways our trauma gets activated, than in exclusive relationships. And again, that's an opportunity. So, yes, many people have trauma in any relationship structure.
Yes.
And some people are using any relationship structure as an opportunity to heal or as an opportunity to avoid their trauma as
Mm.
well. So, just looking at that, oh, am I choosing monogamy or polyamory so that I don't have to look at certain things, right? Or
Interesting.
is it exposing certain things? Yeah.
Mm. The same about jealousy. It's a messenger as again. Mm.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I love
Exactly.
it. A last question from this part. It's a question from a woman who is in a monogamous heterosexual relationship, and she would like to open up the relationship, but not the partner. Oh, she thinks he might not want.
Right.
What kind of advice you will give her?
Yes. So I would bring it up first, saying this is something you want to talk about, but not something you're saying we're doing, right? So
Mm,
don't present that the decision is already made. Just say, hey, this is something I'd like to explore. I'd like to brainstorm about this and let's just fantasize. But I'm not
mm,
saying let's actually shift here yet.
mm.
So
Nice.
sometimes that just relaxes the other person of like, we're just playing fantasy, we're just brainstorming together, we're just exploring. Um, And usually the person needs to hear how this isn't about a deficiency in them. It's not about
Mm,
them not being enough. It's not about the relationship not being enough. It's coming from a different place internally.
mm,
So, really bringing that forward, right?
mm.
If you are trying to do non monogamy because you feel like your partner in relationship isn't enough, then I would look at that first before
Ah.
opening up, right?
Mhm,
But if it's truly coming from this place of feeling yourself to be this way or wanting to have diversity of experience and love and sex, that's very different. That's an abundance, you know, need or desire versus trying to fill something that you're not getting.
yes, this is an
Yeah.
important point as well. Abundance versus feeling something, because in sexotherapy, you can hear a lot of couples who have like a desire like gap,
Yeah.
right? And one of the solutions they think can help, and sometimes we can look at these options, would be like to open the relationship
Yeah.
for maybe the person who has a higher desire to go feel the need, but also for the person who has the lowest desire, who are like, I just want to be alone, do whatever.
Yeah. And that can work. That really
Okay.
can work. But you're both saying this is the best choice,
Hmm.
right? But overall, it doesn't feel like, oh, this relationship isn't actually enough for me. It's just, yeah, there's certain needs we might not be getting met in the relationship. And we can say, given this wonderful relationship, but there's a need it's not meeting, and it's a need I don't want to give up in my life.
Yes.
Can I go explore it somewhere else? Yeah.
Hmm. And first, in a state of brainstorming, we don't impose it into the other person, we just reflect together. We
Yeah.
give the space to reflect, to take time to learn about the concept, also to learn about the consequences, the impact, the time management we will need to put into it. So, a lot of
Yeah.
different
And
things.
sometimes people initially have a very negative response to this. They just
Yeah.
basically crap on it, and say, that's ridiculous. That's just X, Y, and Z.
Mm.
And I wouldn't give up. Just let them have their reaction and
Yes.
say, okay, I hear this maybe doesn't sound valid to you, but it's valid to me. And I really
Mm.
want us to be able to explore this just theoretically at some point.
Mm. Nice.
And come back
Yes.
to it in a few weeks, come back to it in a month, but actually just advocate of like, hey, can you explore why you're reacting to this and just
Mm.
be willing to entertain it with me.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice
because
way
I
to
see
say it.
many people who initially have a negative reaction. They don't want to have anything to do with polyamory, become people later down the road who are even advocating it more than their original partner. I see this so
For
many
sure.
times. Yeah. So they
I'm sure
just
that's.
need time. Yeah, they need
Mm.
time to digest it and take it in
Mm.
because it's such
Mm.
a new concept.
It's a new concept, but it's true, and it can be destabilized for people who were already into it, and then the partner was not into it, and then became the person who is the most,
Into
into
it.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, super interesting. Okay, so I hope it gave some answers to the people who are wondering. Like, go check the book Polywise, Polysecure to go deep
Yeah,
down into it. And now part two for people who are already in
great.
conscious non-monogamous. So you conducted 30 interviews over the course of a year with people identified in this kind of a relationship. And I wanted to know from the interviews you conducted, even from your practice, what are the key learning
Yeah.
from the people you interviewed and you see in your office?
Yeah, and I think the book Polywise is really about condensing those key learnings, right? That there seems to be these archetypal challenges that show up for people practicing non-monogamy, whether they're new or whether they've been in it a long time and are going through a transition,
Mm,
like changing their style that they've been practicing, right? Or living with a partner and not living with a partner, things like that, escalations and de-escalations. So there's a lot of sort of lessons and learnings from that around the challenge of just making a paradigm shift is a
yes.
huge deal. And how do we consciously make paradigm shifts, right? It's a question we don't necessarily engage with.
Mm. And can you tell more about paradigm shift, because we are talking a lot about it, but to really understand, like, our way of thinking has to be different. What is it about?
Yeah, so paradigms are the lenses, right? The
Mm,
frame at which we are looking at something. So the easiest one is to say that, the paradigm of the field of biology versus chemistry versus
mm,
physics can all look at the same, molecule, let's say, and they're going to interpret it and define it and relate to it vastly differently.
mm,
They're all right. None of them are wrong, right? And yet, each paradigm can also have its limits. If we only see, let's say, a molecule or a cell from a physics versus a chemical perspective,
mhm,
right? So, paradigms are our worldviews. We have
mm,
political paradigms, religious paradigms, food paradigms, and obviously a relational paradigm.
mm,
And so it's how we understand ourselves, how we define and understand others, how we perceive things. It literally comes down to the level of perception, how we emotionally respond to things. So within monogamy and polyamory, the monogamous paradigm would say your partner with someone else is the worst thing that could happen.
mm,
So we have all this emotional wiring for the worst thing that could happen if they were to sleep with someone else, right? And there's emotional reactivity that arises. Now I'm in this other paradigm that says this is a
mm.
great thing I'm supposed to celebrate. I can't just flip that switch necessarily. Some people can, right? But some people, it's like, whoa, this is an actual rewiring of my nervous system that needs to happen.
Mm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So I really want people to understand, like, for some, the paradigm shift is massive, right? And
Mm,
and you can make the paradigm shift, but that doesn't mean the people in your life have or the world has. So you're now interfacing with the other paradigm as dominant and you're marginalized.
mm.
Yeah,
It's a journey between what you want or aim for, and then what is happening maybe in your belief or in your body. Oh, I should be the kind of person who is not jealous because I decide of this, and why I'm still feeling jealous or why I'm thinking this way. The old
exactly.
way.
The old way, right? There's a lot of the old and the new that has to
Hmm.
happen and it can take time. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's just one. I'll just name the others real quick.
Yes.
Some of the other big
Yes.
learnings are sort of like we said, that the skills that we had in exclusive monogamous relationships don't fully translate
Yes.
to, they don't convert 100% to the skills that we need. So there's a lot of up leveling people have to do. Many of these transitions expose relationship issues in the pre-existing relationships,
Mm. Yeah.
unhealthy patterns of communication, of not dealing with things that now, whoa, we can't not deal with them, especially around codependency. Yeah,
So it's about things that were not necessarily working before, but right now in this new dynamic, we see it even more. Or you can also see it in couples who were just quote perfect,
Yeah,
everything was really great. They were, communicating well, co-regulating, secure attachment, and then they open the relationship and then it explodes.
it's both. I see both
Okay.
happen. Yeah, right.
Hmm.
And there isn't sort of a way to predict it. It's
No.
just sort of this wheel that goes around, and it's like, which one are
We
you going to
wish.
be? Right. Yeah, so both can happen. Yeah.
Mm. Wow.
Yeah.
So for example, I'm thinking for couples who where a lot of things are doing well, it's a risk to take.
Yep. It's a risk to
Hmm.
take. It's also a risk to take to stay complacent if that's what the choice is, right? I
Mm.
mean, I think there's many risk and choice points even in any relationship to bring up a need you have. That's a risk. And that's often why we fear doing it. Because if I let you know my need, there's the positive leap that you will meet it and we'll get closer and I'll feel even more fulfilled.
Yes.
But if you know my need and you don't meet it and it's out there, right?
It's feel very
It's a risk.
vulnerable. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a risk. Yeah. So I have a question for someone who is already in conscious non-monogamous. So it's about polysaturation, which is when we have too many partners to handle.
Yeah.
So the question of the man was what kind of advice you will give to him experiencing polysaturation?
Yeah. So it's common. Yeah. And it's hard. And so, to do an assessment on what's creating the saturation, even like what areas of life beyond partners might need to come into different balance. Are you working too much? Are you not working enough? Right?
Mhm.
Right? Do you have a health condition or a family member with certain needs that, or certain hobbies, like doing a whole assessment of where does your time go
Mhm.
and where do you want it to go?
Yeah,
Right?
again, assessments of time management, your health, maybe also your why. Why are you doing
Yes.
this? Maybe it's too. Maybe at that point of your life, you're like, oh, maybe it's not what I really want, or it's maybe too much for me, or I'm just super tired, and I might need only two partners instead of five, for example,
Right, or none for
or
right
none.
now.
Hmm.
Yeah, we can be
Hmm.
polyamorous with no partners, right?
Yeah,
Or
which
one
is
partner.
solo polyamory.
Yeah,
Mhm.
well, I mean, solo polyamory, people can have multiple partners.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. They usually just don't cohabitate or entwine in that more domestic structural way with people,
True.
but they'll still have multiple partners.
Okay.
But
Good
we
to
can,
correct me. Yeah.
right, yeah, we can be single though and
Mm-hmm.
polyamorous, right?
Yeah, this is in the way I was thinking, but I was just seeing this dimension. But yeah, you
Yes,
can be a
yes,
solo polyamory and having multiple partners, but just you are independent. You don't live together. You just do
exactly.
your life on your own, kind of.
Yeah. So for someone who's polysaturated, doing this assessment of where is your time and resources and energy going, and how would you like to rearrange that?
Hmm.
Are you people pleasing? If you're people pleasing in your relationships,
Ooh,
polyamory is going to be hard, right? Because you can't
yeah.
make everyone happy all the time, and it's usually at the expense of yourself.
Mm. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
that becomes a big thing of, are you actually spending time and getting the personal space you need to integrate the transitions from one partner, one person to another?
Mm.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
People please there might be difficult. I'm thinking
Yeah. And if
about
you're
that.
really saturated, obviously don't take on more partners. Like put a pause on dating, put a pause on
Yes.
taking in new people, and, see what within the current dynamic needs to shift.
Rearrange, yeah.
Yeah.
And do you see more people being in polysaturation when they are like beginner, meaning, oh my God, it's all new and I want to have as many as possible people?
Yeah, totally. There's usually like a zealous smorgasbord, open
Mhm.
buffet type of, excitement that can happen in the beginning of people exploring
Mm.
this. Yeah. And just like eating too much at a buffet, I mean, that's a very American thing. I don't know if
Yes,
it's
yes.
right. Or having too
Yeah.
many drinks at an open bar, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can overdo it.
Mm.
Absolutely, you can overdo it.
You can
So I
overdo
do
it. Yeah.
see that as very common, especially if people have been exclusive or monogamous for a long time, or maybe they're after a divorce, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
this like, I want to sow my oats type of thing. Um, yes. Yeah.
Super interesting. Yeah. I have a male client who is with a new girlfriend. They started dating as a hierarchical, non monogamous couple. For him, it was really the first time he experienced this kind of relationship, even open relationship. And after a few months, the girlfriend asked him to be in a non hierarchical relationship. And this is when he came to sessions. He's eager to learn about the dynamics of the relationship, but he struggled with sometimes jealousy, but he doesn't want to be this kind of guy. He
Yeah.
really wants to be fair with his girlfriend, and he really wants to make it work in a non-hierarchical setup. But he realized himself that he sometimes fall back into the kind of a paradigm
Yeah.
paradigm of monogamous. So how would you guide him?
Yeah. Two things stick out.
Yes.
It's so common for men to open up and then they don't want to be that guy. They're men that
Mm.
have usually done work on themselves. They don't subscribe to patriarchal ways of relating to women. And yet, here they are in a non monogamous setting and they feel all this possessiveness. So, in the safety of a container with you, it's okay to feel that way. It's not okay to act that out. So really giving permission of like, you do feel that way. You're not
Mhm.
being that guy, right?
Mhm.
And yet let's embrace and really allow that you're having feelings of jealousy and possessiveness. So when they're trying to stuff it away and exile it, that usually just boomerangs back,
Yes.
right?
Yes, because they feel guilty, they feel
Yeah, right.
shame.
Right.
Mhm.
So really working on this permission to be jealous, even permission to feel possessive. That's the
Mm.
cultural inheritance that we all have. It's not your specific, problem.
Traits.
Right. And yet that boundary on we don't act those things out onto our partner, right? So I would do that work of really acceptance, self allowance, working with the jealousy.
Mm.
And then, yeah, the shift to non-hierarchy is difficult.
Okay.
And so honoring that, talking about pacing, right?
Slow
But
down.
usually people need to know I would talk about how we rely previously on the structure of hierarchy to feel like
Mhm.
I'm valuable and enough because I'm the
Mm.
highest on the status, right?
Yes. Yes.
Versus the relational experience of what do you need to know that you're unique
Mm.
and special and irreplaceable. These are key things that I want people to define with each other is how are you so unique and special and irreplaceable to me?
But it may be difficult because I feel like the people who are entering into the non-hierarchical, they they sometimes feel like they're higher than the people who are in hierarchical. Like they're like, no, we're not these kind of people who are even above, because
I
us
know.
we want everyone to be on the same level. So
Yeah.
how you can make someone feel special, unique, irreplaceable when actually I feel like the concept is all the contrary.
Yeah, I don't think it is. I think we can let people know that they are unique and special to us, but
Mhm.
that doesn't mean they're better, less, or more than
Mhm.
somebody else, you
Okay.
know?
Hmm.
And I think an important thing is to honor the hierarchies that are always there. So if you have been with someone longer, there's a time hierarchy that no one can erase,
Yes.
right? So we say there are hierarchies, even though we are looking to be less hierarchical. I don't think there's actually something as non hierarchical,
Okay.
right? It's a beautiful theory. In practice, we have to say, well, I might be nesting with this partner. I love this other partner I don't nest with just the same, but we don't share finances. So there's a hierarchy that's
Mm.
there, right?
Mm.
Or a partner that I've been with for 3 years versus 3 months, there's just differences, right?
Mhm.
In the
Mm.
rituals we have for holidays or that they know my family or whatever it
Mhm.
is, right?
Or someone with who I have kids
One
and
with
not
I
the
have
other partners.
kids,
Mhm.
right? And honoring, I mean, I'll tell people my son is my first hierarchy, actually, right? Over
Yes. Mm.
everything, you know?
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
But really defining what is it that helps us feel special and unique is an important piece in
Mm.
working through that, not having the structure to rely on anymore.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love it. And since you are talking about your son, I'm thinking about the people who are wondering how to tell, how
Yeah,
to say to their kids
yeah.
their lifestyle or their orientation. How you will start.
Yeah, in my case, my son has sort of known. He grew up with knowing
Mhm.
that he has a mom and dad who are completely invested. We live together,
Mm,
and that we love other people, and there's other people that we share love with.
mm,
So he's grown up with the concept. So he's super known and comfortable with it. Yeah.
mm.
But many
Yes.
people, if they're sort of coming out to their kids, age really matters. And
Okay.
so, if you have adult kids, it's very different than if you have a 10-year-old or a teenager.
Mm,
And many times people are very afraid. And often I see people, their kids are usually okay with it. Keep it simple. Just talking about there's many ways to love. And this is a way that we're loving other people or bringing other people into our lives. And, sometimes they say, great, I don't want to know much about it. Or they're like, okay, but it becomes an issue when people start to feel like they're lying to their kids, is usually what happens.
yeah.
And that's where it can become very difficult that the kids do feel betrayed when you've been going off and having sleepovers and lying to them and saying you're going to work and they find out.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, to keep it simple. And I had another questions about this. Let's imagine you are the parents, maybe in monogamous relationship. I don't know, but you have young kids. I don't know if they have to be minors, but let's say young kids,
Yeah.
18 around 18 years old, who wants this kind of relationship, open relationship. Is
Yeah.
it something that you will recommend, advise, or forbid?
Right. I mean, of course, it depends on the values of the family.
Mhm.
The younger generations right now are starting off at a very different place than where I
Mm.
started off with. Potentially you did too, right?
Mm.
Where monogamy was more assumed. It's less
Yes.
assumed now.
Okay.
Yeah, and most people are sort of knowing that we can date multiple people and like it's better to wait before committing, and even when you commit, it doesn't have to be just to one person. So, I think if we have children that are polyamorous, not to shame them and to just be curious and ask,
Mhm.
why? What does this mean to you? What does it feel like? Why are you drawn to this? So stay open and curious and interested versus judging and shaming, and that can be
Okay.
with obviously anything that our child is or
Mhm.
does that is different than us.
Mm. Yeah, like kindness, no judgment, listening, keeping the heart open,
Right.
and yeah, welcoming what is happening for the kids and the same for the parents when it's
Yeah.
happening.
And when we lead with that, then our kids are much more likely to hear our concerns about it,
Mm.
right? When we connect
Yes.
with them first and are curious about them first, then they can hear our concerns. But if we lead
Yes.
with our concerns, they feel misunderstood, misattuned to, and then they're going to push against our concerns, even if those are valid concerns to have.
Yeah. Yeah, you need connection first. You
Yeah.
need a trust in order to be able to hear and understand,
Yeah.
and yeah, hearing the concerns. That's good. Thank you for those answers. I have a questions. Also, we were talking about controlling,
Yeah.
right? So when I was reading your book, I was like, is it controlling? Is it not?
Right.
So I feel like there's a fine line between setting boundaries to create, a vessel agreement and controlling behavior.
Yep.
You talk already a bit about it, but how do you distinguish between the two?
Yeah. With the people I'm working with, I'll ask, where is this coming from within you? So I do a lot of internal family systems parts work and couples parts work. So we'll explore, is this a part of you that is trying to control? And your partner will feel that difference pretty
Mhm.
quickly, usually, right? Or is this a part of you that is struggling and asking for a slower pace because you're in touch with what's happening and what you need? And that's what you're requesting.
Mm. good.
right? Or is this, a part of you that's looking ahead at your summer and going, we have, 3 family trips and a move. I don't think we have much time for dating. Can we just wait,
Yeah.
until the fall? Like there's some practicality. Is that a reasonable part of yourself, right? Versus, I don't want my partner to do this, so I'm going to make all these excuses to control them. So really looking at where it's coming from within.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it can be also difficult. I mean, maybe it's also, as you said, I think we feel the intention of
Yep.
the other one. So one person can say, but no, really, we have many, many, many things, even if it's excuses. But the other partner will feel like the intention is like, there's something that she or he doesn't want me to do. Or, yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Right. So sometimes we can, we can try to do the controlling instead of being more vulnerable about, like, I'm actually struggling with this.
Hmm.
If we slow down or if we did it in this way for this amount of time, then I can just get on board much faster, actually.
Oh, yeah. To
Yeah.
slow down, to allow yourself to make adjustments as well.
Yeah. There's really a slow down to speed up. Like
Slow
when
down to
people
speed up.
try to, go fast too quickly, it usually
Yes.
backfires and then they don't get where they want to be as quickly. Whereas
Mm.
like that, slow and steady wins the race is really what I see, across the board. Yeah.
I love this. And I can feel like for a lot of people, it would be really reassuring to hear those words and to know that in their relationships, they can slow down. Because
Yeah.
sometimes they're just because everything is going too fast, too quick, and there's no, as we were saying before, brainstorming is like this, is this way, and voila.
Exactly. Yeah.
Jessica, thank you so much. Where we can find more about your work. So I was talking about your two amazing books that I really loved, which is Polysecure and Polywise. Has it translated to French or not
I
yet?
don't think yet. I have to talk to my
Okay.
publisher. It's in Spanish, it's in German, it's getting translated into Mandarin and Italian, like a
Okay.
few different languages, but I don't know if French is there yet. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Because after this episode, I know a lot of people are going to be frustrated because they will
Yeah,
want to read
I'm
it in French.
sorry.
So we can find more your work on your website,
On
right?
my website, jessicafern.com. Yes.
.com. So I will put up there. Thank you so much, Jessica, for your time and
Yeah,
for your
thank
knowledge.
you. Yes, and thank you for everyone listening and just being open to this conversation.